Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about brushes. I am so excited. Beautylish has come out with a new face brush collection and it's called the Yano series, Y-A-N-O, and they were kind enough in sending me a brush set to review for you guys. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be showing you each brush, I'm going to be demoing each brush, and then I'm going to be comparing each brush to other brushes that I have in my collection, just so you can get a better idea of the shape and the hair length of each of the brushes in case you have some of the brushes that I'm comparing them to. So let's go ahead and get started. The brush set is comprised of 5 face brushes, and I'm going to try and hold up all of them. Here are all 5 of the face brushes. I did take like an overhead shot of brushes 1 through 5 for you, just so you can see some size comparisons. I'll pop that up here for you now. So brush 1 is all the way on the left-hand side. That is the largest brush, face brush. Next to that is brush number 2. Then we have 3, 4, which is like a flat top kabuki brush. And then we have brush number 5, which is like a pointed, I would call this like a highlight brush. So let's talk about the brush design just in general here. I'm just going to hold up brush number 2 here. We have a glossy black finish. We have Yano series here printed on the handle. And then if you flip it over, it tells you which brush it is. And what I really enjoy about this design is that the handles are fairly thick, and I know that's not always the most practical. They take up a lot more room, like if you store them in cups. I know if you're a makeup artist, they just take up a little bit more room. But as someone who's just kind of a brush consumer here, I just love brushes. I love when they're a little bit of a thicker handle. I just think they're a little bit easier to hold. They just feel really good in the hand. So they are a little bit thicker. I'm just going to hold this up next to one of the Sonia G fundamental brushes. This is her Face 1 brush. So it's not quite as thick as the Sonia G handles, which another handle that I just absolutely love. And then here it is next to a comparable size brush from Refer. So it is a little bit thicker than this handle that they have. It's also a little bit shorter than the Refer brush handle. And then it's got this like slanted bottom to it, which I think is so beautiful. It actually reminds me of, let's see, the Saikoho S series. This is just an eyeshadow brush, but you can see that it has that slanted bottom there. So I really like that attention to detail. I think it looks really beautiful. I love this glossy black finish. It's very modern and very sleek. All of the hairs on these brushes are natural hair. So they use gray squirrel hair and Saikoho goat hair. And I actually just wrote the Beautylish team to ask them like which brush used what hairs, because some of them are made out of 100% gray squirrel. Some of them have a mix of the squirrel and the goat. So the customer service representative that I was emailing with, she had to get back to me because she was not sure of the actual specifics. So I will leave that down below in the description box because she says she's going to find out for me, email me, and I have my email open. In case she does get back to me while I'm filming, I'll be able to tell you. But I will leave all of the details down below in the description box, and I'm sure also that they will be on the Beautylish site. So these brushes are available today. Did I mention that? They are available today. I'm not exactly sure what time. I think either 9 a.m. Pacific or 10 a.m. Pacific. But again, all the details will be down below in my description box. I also am not sure of the retail price for these 5 brushes. Again, they do come in a set. I don't believe they're available individually just yet. And I do think the set is around $425. Again, don't quote me. I will have the correct price down below in the description box. And these were handmade in Japan. Because all these brushes are gray squirrel hair and I believe dyed goat hair, I would not recommend using these with any kind of cream or liquid product. These are all definitely for powder products. So definitely keep that in mind if you are interested in these. They are incredibly soft. I mean, minky soft. Gray squirrel hair is known to be very soft, but the difference between natural hair and synthetic hair brushes, because synthetic brushes feel very soft, what they lack is the cuticle in the hair. So the softness of Synthetic haired brushes, the trade-off really is that they don't pick up product that easily, or they don't hold on to product that easily. And with natural hair brushes, they have cuticles in the hair that kind of grab onto product and also kind of distribute product more slowly and more evenly. So aside from the softness of natural squirrel hair, that really is the benefit of using natural hairs, are those cuticles. So definitely don't use these with cream or liquid products. And also, what I would say is you really want to be careful in terms of the care of natural hair brushes. I've done like a care video on my brushes. If you want to look that up, you can. But I just want to mention this very, very quickly. You do not want to wash these quite as often as you can wash synthetic haired brushes. You want to wash these, actually wash under water with some soap. I would say no more than like once a month tops. In between, what you want to do is just use like a microfiber towel and brush it over the towel gently. I think that should be sufficient if you're not a makeup artist. Obviously, they have different sanitary requirements or whatever. But if you're just someone doing your makeup at home, brushing it over the towel, that should be enough. And because you won't be using cream or liquid products with this, I don't think you really need to do much more in terms of like one of those spray cleaners that, those quick dry cleaners or whatever. You probably won't even need that because the powder should be able to come off on the microfiber towel like very easily. So I did just want to mention that, but let's go ahead and play around with these brushes. So I'm going to start with brush number 1, and this is a very flat, long-haired brush. And when powder brushes are flat this way, when the ferrule is actually pinched like this, so it's wider than it is fat, it's not round. These are brushes that I like to use like in strokes instead of buffing. I leave buffing for brushes that are round. So like my Surratt powder brush, this has a round ferrule, and so it's a little bit more egg-shaped. And so I feel a little bit more comfortable buffing with a brush like this. But with flat brushes, they're more paddle-shaped, and I really like kind of sweeping with this brush. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some loose powder with this. I have foundation and concealer down. So I've got my Kogen Do Natural Lighting Powder here. And just gonna pick up a little bit, and I'm just going to lightly dust. Really beautiful, even application. That's what I was talking about in the beginning with the, rambling about cuticles on the hair. I feel like when I use synthetic hair brushes, and you guys have heard me say this plenty of times, that you end up with a lot of product in the beginning, and you kind of spend the rest of your time spreading that little product out, where with natural hair brushes, they actually distribute the product more slowly. So you actually have a little bit of product left as you're working it onto your skin. So it just applies product a lot more easily and more smoothly, and you spend a lot less time trying to like distribute that little bit of product. So nice, lovely, even application. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the rest of my face here. All right, so that was brush number 1. Let's go ahead and play with brush number 2. Now I have not gotten a chance to wash these, and so this one is just a little crooked, just from like packing or whatever. So it's going to end up being a little bit more egg shaped. This one is still pinched, just like brush number 1. But this size brush is actually a little bit, it's flatter, so it's a little bit less dense, but the brush hair length is a little bit more similar to the other powder brushes I have. And when I do comparisons in the next section of this video, you'll see it, but I'm just gonna hold it up next to this Surratt brush. So you can see that brush number 2, even though it's smaller than brush number 1, is still a considerably large brush. And so, I typically think of like brush sets like, okay, the biggest one is for powder, the next one is for blush or cheek products, but then we have 2 more brushes here for that. But I'm gonna go ahead and use this as a bronzer brush. I'm gonna use brush number 3 as a blush brush, and I'm gonna use brush number 5 as a highlight. So like I said, I'm gonna use this for bronzer, but again, because this is like a flat brush, it's really good for sweeping. So I am interested to see how this is going to work because when it comes to bronzer, sometimes I really like to buff it in. Let me go ahead and just lay down some product with brush number 2, and I've got my Clinique Powder Pop Flower Bronzer in Solar Pop. This is their bronzer that is of a baked gelée formula. And baked gelée products are notorious for not like picking up very easily on brushes. And so I just wanted to test it out because natural hair brushes are better than synthetic hair brushes in that regard as well. They pick up product a lot more easily, again, because of those cuticles. But this is so soft that I'm just curious if it's going to. So I'm just gonna sweep it across the bronzer. So it's picked up just a very small amount. So I don't know if this brush is great for baked gelée products. We can try another one. Let me grab another one. I have this Nabla bronzer. This is their skin bronzing in Ambra. Again, another baked gelée product, and just playing around and seeing like if this brush is good for baked gelée products. Picked up a little bit. Yeah, picked up a little bit of the product. So this would be great if you're looking for a very light application, but let me go ahead and grab like a typical like powder bronzer. All right, I've got the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer in medium. Oh yeah, you can see that it picks up a lot more product just with a few strokes. So I'm just gonna add this right on top. What a pretty soft airbrushed application though. So beautiful. So soft, really, really beautiful. All right, so that is brush number 2. All right, brush number 3, smaller version of brush number 2. It's a much smaller version of brush number 2. And I'm gonna go ahead and apply some blush with this. And of course, I think this would be great for blush, highlight, even bronzer. If maybe you have like a smaller area that you want to apply it, maybe you're contouring, you just want to place it like in a very specific area, this would be really great. So I did grab a regular powder brush and a baked gelée blush. So this is the new Chanel Spring 2021 collection blush. This is the blush and highlighter duo. So I'm going to grab this blush over here on the right hand side and see how this brush does in picking it up. Oh, not bad. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this down. Great job with the baked gelée. That's beautiful. It looks like it just like is fused, like just becomes one with my skin. And then for the regular powder brush, I have the 219 in Dior. You guys know how much I love this blush. So I'm gonna just flip the brush around, and yes, this picks up plenty. Beautiful. You know, I'm thinking I should have grabbed either the 999 from Dior or the NARS Exhibit A, because I think if you have a very, very bold blush, you just really like the color when you lay it down softly, this brush would be perfect for that. You know, you can just lay down like a really light dusting of it with a brush like this. You know, you don't have to worry about going overboard. Nice. Okay, so next, I want to use brush number 5. I'm just skipping over brush number 4 for a second because I want to use this for highlight. So this is a pointy brush with a round ferrule, and I think this shape is always really great for highlight because of that pointy end. You can really just kind of lay it down exactly where you want it. So let me go ahead and test out another baked gelée highlight. I've got my Clinique Powder Pop Flower Highlighter. Doing the same test, seeing how this brush picks up a baked gelée product. Not bad. I just kind of brushed it over it a little bit like this. Oh, beautiful. Again, really lovely, kind of soft application. This is definitely a brush I would choose for like a softer application. Sometimes you guys hear me say like, oh, I really want kind of like a bold highlight, and I'll reach for like one of Sonia G's like fan brushes, like her Sculpt 2 brush, because these are a lot more dense and they lay down a lot more product. This is pretty much like, kind of like the opposite of that. You're just gonna get a really soft, like dusting of the highlight. But it did pick up this baked gelée formula, it did pick it up really nicely. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and apply some of this Vesca Stargaze Luminous Glow Highlighting Powder in Moonlight. And this is not a baked gelée, this is more of a pressed powder. So I'm gonna use the brush number 5 in this, and oh, okay, picks up a lot of product very quickly. So I'm gonna knock some off. And oh, this highlight is so pretty. Wow, that's beautiful. That is really, really beautiful. All right, so those are brushes 1, 2, 3, and 5. I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to brush number 4. So this is like a flat top kabuki brush. And when these aren't made out of synthetic hairs, sometimes I like kind of don't know what to do with these brushes. When they're made out of synthetic hairs, I like using them as like a cream cheek brush. So this is my Smashbox cream cheek brush. There's a similarity there. The shape obviously is a little bit different. The hair length is a little bit different. But when I see these, that's what I want to use it for, is for like a cream cheek product. So it's interesting. I do have a Hakuhodo brush very similar to this. Again, I'll do some comparisons at the end. And they actually call it a large eyeshadow brush. And I always thought that was so interesting because to me, this is really, the largest eyeshadow brush you could have. But I do know sometimes, I'll lay down a deep color on the outer corner of my eye and try and blend that in. And sometimes I'm not very successful. Sometimes maybe the color I chose is too dark, or, it's a formula that doesn't blend very well and I don't have the patience to blend it out. This has come in very handy, not this one, but the Hakuhodo one has come in very, very handy because it does do a really good job buffing. And I was watching Tara Babies talk about these brushes in her last haul video, and she likes to use these for contour. And I definitely have seen, the brushes used for contour or whatever. I just don't personally contour that much. I just use bronze to bronzer a little bit, but I don't really specifically contour often. I do like to do it if I'm doing kind of like, a glamorous, amped up kind of look, but I don't do it often. And so like I mentioned, I wouldn't use this for cream products, obviously. I would really only use this for powder products. And I know I've tried using it as a buffing brush the same way I use my Sonyoji like Face One and Smooth Buffer, but these are a little bit more, what's the word? Like they just move a little bit more, and they're bigger and the hair length is longer. This is a little bit denser than that. And so I don't know how good it would be in actually buffing without actually moving anything underneath. So I wanted to try it for that. I wanted to try using like my Guerlain Meteorites over my cheek area and seeing how well, it kind of buffs everything out, or if I feel like it's just kind of moving stuff underneath. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to play around with this brush. So I've got the Meteorites medium here. And I'm just going to pick some up off of the cap here. Just blend. Like I'm thinking if sometimes I apply like a highlight that's a little too stripey looking, or, the same with blush or whatever. Maybe I'm just not the biggest fan of like the shine of it or something. I feel like this could be good for that's a very specific purpose, but it would be really good for that. It really kind of just buffed out this highlight really nicely. Let me try it on this side again. Oh yeah, so this was the Vesca side, and it really kind of toned it down. Yeah, this one does a nice job buffing, a nicer job buffing than a lot of the other brushes that I have that are like this, because as I was kind of running my fingers over it, it felt a little bit less densely packed than the other ones. But I'm definitely gonna have to play around with this brush a little bit more and kind of just figure out how I like to best use it. Oh, this is nice. Kind of buffing around my nose. But while we're just playing, I'm actually gonna take out the Charlotte Tilbury Medium Bronzer again. I'm just gonna grab this brush. I'm gonna kind of pick up a little bit of the product, kind of buff it in there. You definitely get a very precise application. This would be very, very good for contour. And this brush, definitely, compared to my other ones, I feel it's not really disturbing anything underneath. Maybe the other ones I have are just a little bit too dense. Yeah, this one feels a little bit better. Anyway, that is brush number 4. If you guys have brushes like this, you like using them, please let me know down below in the comment section, like how you like to use these brushes. I mean, I feel like it's one of those brushes that's so versatile that I don't know what to do with it, But anyway, that is the brush number 4. All right, I'm just gonna finish up my makeup and then we'll get into the brush comparisons. All right, makeup is done. I'll have all the details of what I have on my face down below in the description box, but let's go ahead and get into the brush comparisons. So I start with brush number 1, And like I mentioned, this is a fairly large brush. It has very long bristles, long hair length, and it's flat. And I just don't have a lot of brushes like this. Usually my larger powder brushes, ones with like a longer hair length like this, have a round ferrule. So I did pull out 3 brushes that I thought were the closest. The first one is a comparison to the Saikoho GSN 1 brush. And I actually picked this up when I was in Kumano in Japan. So the Saikoho brush is a blend of squirrel and goat hair. They're both flat, which, you know, was the first thing I thought of when I was thinking about comparisons. And what I didn't realize is the Yano brush from Beautylish is considerably larger. It's wider and it's thicker than the Saikoho GSN one. So I was a little bit surprised at that. I was like, oh wow, didn't realize that it was going to be like visibly larger. So the second one I compare it to is actually a brush that is, you know, I don't know if this brush is out of production or if it's just not being sold in the US, but this is the Shiseido, I think they call this like the makeup brush powder or the powder makeup brush, something like that. But this is all squirrel hair and it is just as wide as the brush number 1, but it's flatter than brush number 1. So this brush from Shiseido is much airier and it has a lighter application and it's really wispy. It's a very, very wispy brush. And then the last brush I compare it to is another brush that I purchased when I was in Japan. This is from Shakura. And these are the brushes that have like the one sort of handle ferrule design. This brush is, you know, flat. It has a similar hair length. It's still not quite as long as the brush number 1. And in terms of width, I think the brush number 1 is a little bit wider, but I think they're the same thickness or very similar kind of thickness. But the Shakura brush, you can probably even see it looking at them side by side. The Shakura brush is much denser. It's not quite as airy and wispy as the brush number 1. So when it came to comparisons for brush number 2, it was kind of the same brushes that I compared to brush number 1. So I'm actually just going to hold up brush number 1 and brush number 2 for you because they are very, very similar. Brush number 2 is really just a smaller version of brush number 1. I do think the shape of it is a little bit different. It's a little bit more like egg-shaped on top versus like paddle-shaped for brush number 1. But I did just want to hold these 2 up just to show you a comparison. And there was one brush I just wanted to compare brush number 2 to, and that is the Beautylish Year of the Ox brush, because I thought the hair lengths were similar. Brush number 2, they're just a little bit longer because they kind of come to that point. And the Year of the Ox Beautylish brush it's not round, but it's oval shaped. So it's not exactly pinched and flat, kind of paddle-like these Yano brushes, but they are, you know, not exactly round. So I thought that I would compare these 2 for you, but the Year of the Ox brush is much thicker than brush number 2. As for brush number 3, I went ahead and compared it to the Saikoho cheek brush in the Z series. And I'll have, again, listed down below in my description box which Z brush this is because they are numbered, but they're not numbered on the handle. They do have, it does say cheek brush on there, but it doesn't say which Z brush. And the Saikoho Z brush is considerably larger. It is a little bit wider. It is much thicker, and just like that Year of the Ox brush, it's an oval shape versus it being pinched. So the brush number 3 from the Yano series is much flatter than the cheek brush. Of course, I had to compare it to the Wang airbrush. The airbrush is like a little bit narrower and a lot flatter, and almost like the Shiseido powder brush compared to the brush number 1. The Wang airbrush is much wispier than brush number 3. So the application with the airbrush is going to be a lot lighter than brush number 3. And then I wanted to go ahead and compare it to the Suku cheek brush. The Suku cheek brush, again, is a little bit more of an oval shape. It's slightly pinched, but it's narrower than brush number 3. But it's about the same thickness, maybe a little bit thicker. So the Suku has more of like a paddle shape to it, while the brush number 3 is a little bit more pointed at the top. And then last but not least, I'm comparing it to the Sonia G Designer Pro brush. I feel like brush number 3 is, if the Designer Pro brush were to have a baby with Wang Goss's airbrush, you would end up with brush number 3. So you can see that the shape of brush number 3 is very similar to the Designer Pro, but the Designer Pro is much more of a denser brush. You know, I don't think it's actually that much thicker than brush number 3, but it is more narrow. And I don't know if you can see, but the ferrule on Designer Pro, at the top, it kind of comes in a little bit. So it just makes, it kind of holds the bristles in, and it makes them just like a little bit denser than the brush number 3 ferrule that you can see just goes straight up. All right, next for brush number 4, this is that flat top kabuki brush. And my first comparison here is with the Hakuhodo Kokuten brush. This is the other brush I was talking about. This brush is, I think it is a little bit denser than brush number 4, but this is the one that Hakuhodo calls a very large eyeshadow brush. And when I do use it on my cheek, I do feel like I'm moving product around a little bit too much. And now that I'm kind of feeling both of them, one next to the other, the Hakuhodo does feel a little bit stiffer and denser. But the size of these two brushes are very, very similar, if not the same. The hair length and like the diameter of the ferrule. And both of these have a round ferrule. And then here it is next to the Refer number 17 brush. Again, the size of this is the same, but you can see that, well, I've used this Refer brush quite a bit, and so it has splayed out. I don't get the feeling that brush number 4 is going to splay out quite as much as this Refer brush, but the Refer brush also is much more densely packed than brush number 4. So it is like just chock full of fiber, which is why I'm not surprised like they're getting pushed out to the side, but it is a much denser brush than brush number 4. And then next we have it with the Chikuhodo T3 brush. This is part of the T series, and this brush is just much larger than brush number 4. Same idea, but this brush again is another one that I think is just a lot denser than brush number 4. And here it is next to the Chikuhodo FO-2 brush. This is part of their Silver Fox series. The Chikuhodo brush is, again, another larger brush, and the hair length is a little bit longer than brush number 4. And then next I have it with the Sonia G Mini Base Brush from her Keyaki Travel Brush set. This is, you know, fairly different. I just wanted to compare the two for you because, again, I kind of think of them in the same way. But the Mini Base Sonia G brush, it's more domed. It's not quite as flat top. You can use this with cream products, which is what I like to use this one for. It's now my favorite cream cheek brush. You can also see that the hair length is much longer for the Sonia G, and the diameter is just a little bit smaller than brush 4. And then last but not least, I thought I would just compare it to my Chikuhodo R P5 brush. This brush is a squirrel hair brush. And again, it's just much denser than brush number 4. You can see that the ferrule is wider with the Chikuhodo brush, and then the hairs are shorter. So this is like a big time kind for me, like a buffing brush. And I don't actually use this brush very often, but in any case, I thought I would go ahead and compare the two. And then last but not least, we have brush number 5. This is the pointed highlight brush. So first I thought I'd compare it to the Chikuhodo highlight brush. Again, this is part of the Z series, so I'm not exactly sure which number brush this is, but again, I'll put it down below in the description box. But this brush is just generally larger than brush number 5. It is wider. It is also a rounded ferrule, just like brush number 5. But it's, just bigger. It has a wider diameter. The brush itself feels a little bit denser, and the hair length is just a teensy bit longer, but they are longer. Then I have it compared to the Wang Goss Artist Collection brush. This is the medium size. They're fairly similar in appearance, but the Wang Goss Artist brush is so much wispier and lighter than brush number 5, and it is smaller in diameter. And then I do also compare it to the large brush in the Artist Collection from Wang Goss, and you can see that brush number 5 is considerably smaller than this one. So it's kind of in between the medium and the large brushes from the Artist Collection. And here it is compared to Refer number 19. So it is smaller than this Refer brush. It's narrower and the hair lengths are shorter. And here it is compared to Sonia G's Inochige Pro brush. And again, it is smaller in every way, narrower and shorter. All right, so that is it for this Beautylish Yano series face brush collection video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I was so excited when these brushes were announced, and I didn't even see any kind of preview pictures. I think it was just like a snapshot of the handles, and I was like, oh, yeah, like Beautylish is coming out with brushes. I signed up right away to get notified. So a huge thank you to Beautylish for sending these over to me. I'm just thrilled to have them, and I cannot wait to use them more. So a big thank you to Beautylish. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you are a brush fiend like me, I think you are probably just as excited as I am for these brushes. But give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.